because Canada is held in very high regard.
Is that enough to calm fears about trade? Tensions rise at Syrian peace talks, what they could mean for Russia's sphere of influence. Illegal pot stores targeted for robbery.
Employees and customers have been stabbed, pistol whipped, and pepper sprayed.
But calling police can be tricky. Plus, dancing with Parkinson's.
I think the benefit to dance is that it's using your brain too.
Researchers try to measure the magic. They've spoken by phone. The Prime Minister has extolled the friendship and trade relationship between Canada and the U.S. And soon, Justin Trudeau will get to make his case in person to Donald Trump. The White House says Trudeau and the Mexican president will be guests there in the next 30 days. So no surprise that trade was top of the agenda today at the Liberal cabinet retreat in Calgary, or that a top Trump economic advisor was top draw. Katie Simpson has more.
In a city that has felt firsthand the painful effects of Canada's sluggish economy, welcome news emerged from the Prime Minister's Calgary cabinet retreat.
We have balanced trade between the U.S. and Canada, and that's not the kind of situation where you should be worrying.
Not only did Donald Trump's top economic advisor praise Canada-U.S. trade, but he also suggested Canadian energy companies may be exempt from any border tax the new administration comes up with. The reassurance comes as the government uses its first retreat of the year to find ways to work with President Trump.
Our goal, of course, with the U.S. administration will be to engage, to ensure that we have a very strong relationship so that we can put forth the interests of Canadians.
It appears protecting those interests could prompt a shift in Canada's trading policy.
We will cooperate on trilateral matters when it's in our interest, and we'll be looking to do things that are in our interest bilaterally also.
Canada's ambassador to the U.S. suggested yesterday the government should be less concerned about Mexico and focus more on a deal with the Americans. The new foreign minister wouldn't confirm a strategy and praised both trading partners, but she was quick to add.
But of course, our relationship with the United States is primarily a bilateral relationship, and I think Canadians know and understand that.
And with Trump officially killing the Trans-Pacific Partnership deal today, Canada's new trade minister says bilateral deals may be the way of the future.
We want to send a message that Canada is open to trade, obviously with China, with India, with Japan. I had meetings with my counterparts, so we're going to be considering our options.
Another top Trump advisor, Jared Kushner, who may have the most direct line to the president as his son-in-law, was supposed to arrive at the retreat tomorrow. But there is much disappointment here as disorganization on the U.S. side has ended up nixing the trip. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Calgary.
Trump clearly wants to be tough on trade, but if Canadians who support free trade are concerned he'll kill NAFTA, like he did the TPP today, there's a different reality.
We will either renegotiate it or we will break it. We need fair trade, not free trade.
We will follow two simple rules: buy American and hire American.
For more than a few countries, that's scary talk, but the facts could see Canada come out ahead. First, we do buy American goods, almost as much as we sell to them. In fact, Canada is the second largest trading partner for the U.S., behind China and ahead of Mexico. But here's what Trump sees as the problem. America buys much more from those countries than they do from the U.S. Huge trade deficits that make China and Mexico bigger potential targets.
They are our partners in the future that we are trying to make together.
It's worth pointing out, after 2 decades, the tide of NAFTA has lifted all boats. Trade activity has boomed for all partners. But it's an agreement from a different era.
NAFTA is a quarter century old, so the economy has fundamentally changed. The digital economy didn't exist. So for all of those Canadians who are working in the United States under NAFTA visas or free trade visas, you know, it's kind of hard to get across the border if you're in the digital economy.
So an updated agreement could benefit Canada. But given Trump's desire to show he's a tough negotiator, and that he's winning for Americans, a renewed NAFTA may require a delicate touch.
I wouldn't want to see Canada get identified in a late-night tweet either. I think that could be very damaging. So I think the way Canada has been proceeding as a helpful fixer, as an ally, keeping his powder dry, has been a really good approach.
Well, despite the more reassuring words in Calgary today, people who work in Alberta's main industry are still worried about what it could mean for them. In the short term, the Trump administration may be good for the oil industry. But as Briar Stewart heard today, some worry the good won't last.
On the floor of the shop in Nisku, Alberta, employees make and repair machine parts for the energy industry. But the sagging price of oil has cut the workforce here in half. And now there's some more uncertainty on the horizon.
It's going to be only America first.
Just what will a Donald Trump presidency mean for the energy sector?
Canada's one of the top exporters for 35 different states. So if there's big changes down there, it's going to affect us totally.
In 2015, 40% of the petroleum imported by the United States came from Canada. But the U.S. isn't only our biggest customer, it's also our biggest competitor. Trump has signaled that his administration is going to ramp up domestic production, relax rules, and roll back environmental regulations. That has caught the attention of energy producers here.
For a U.S. oil and gas producer just south of the border from us, right now I think they're feeling pretty optimistic. It does mean that Canadian producers will be concerned about our ability to compete for investment dollars.
Well, it's believed that Canada's energy sector won't be the main target of Trump's protectionist posturing. There will be implications, and some believe that's been overshadowed by the overall outrageousness of the American election campaign.
I think people have not taken it as seriously as they need to.
Dave Hancock is a former premier of Alberta and now works with a multinational law firm. He spent the last week in Washington, and tomorrow is part of a sold-out talk on what businesses can expect from the Trump administration.
I think the homework hasn't been done. I think the federal government needs to actually step up its pace and engage. I think that there's work to be done even from the business level. I think it's a recognition that people didn't really have the expectation that they were going to be facing quite what they're facing.
But just what exactly the Canadian energy industry is facing is still uncertain. While there is concern, there's also optimism. Trump, after all, is pro-business and has previously said that if elected, he'd approve the Keystone XL pipeline. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Edmonton.
There's been an oil pipeline leak in southeastern Saskatchewan. About 200,000 liters of crude spilled onto agricultural land just north of Stoughton. A Saskatchewan government spokesperson says the oil did not get into any creeks or streams. Pipeline owner Tundra Energy Marketing is handling the cleanup. About 170,000 liters have been recovered. His weekend statement to the press about the size of the inauguration crowds has been called everything from a lie to an alternative fact. And Sean Spicer didn't stick around to defend it. But today, the Trump spokesman was back in the briefing room, and this time he took questions, and one went something like this: will you always tell the truth from that podium? Paul Hunter now on where it went from there.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming out to our first official briefing.
Donald Trump's press secretary today might well have said, "Here's to new beginnings." After all, it had been a rocky start for Sean Spicer's relationship with White House reporters. At an impromptu briefing Saturday night, he described Trump's swearing in this way.
This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe.
Almost immediately, up popped photos of Barack Obama's inauguration in 2009 and the same view of Trump's on Friday. Reporters counted 4 other untruths by Spicer. Even the Dallas Stars took a shot at a claim Trump himself had made about the inaugural. Then, yesterday, to a gobsmacked journalist, Trump advisor Kellyanne Conway offered an explanation.
Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that. But the point remains.
Wait a minute, alternative facts?
Crowdgate, as it's of course been dubbed, may seem trivial, but critics underline honesty is imperative for those who speak for the president. So, to that first official briefing today, and a question rarely asked of any presidential spokesperson.
Is it your intention to always tell the truth from that podium?
Yes, I believe that we have to be honest with the American people. I think sometimes we can disagree with the facts.
Spicer stood by his earlier comments, clarifying that by crowd, he meant worldwide on TV and online, adding he states facts as understood at the time. Pressed on why Trump even cares about the size of his crowd, a strong hint the president's frustrated by the tone of his news coverage broadly.
It's not about one tweet. It's not about one picture. It's about a constant theme. It's about sitting here every time and being told, no, well, we don't think he can do that. He'll never accomplish that. He can't win that. It won't be the biggest.
Famously, America's first president, George Washington, is said to have once uttered, "I cannot tell a lie." Spicer didn't quite say that today.
But our intention is never to lie to you, Jonathan.
But it was close. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
Donald Trump has brushed off a new lawsuit being filed against him, calling it without merit. A group of constitutional scholars, Supreme Court litigators, and former White House ethics lawyers says Trump is violating a clause in the Constitution by continuing to accept payments from foreign governments at his hotels and other businesses. Earlier this month, Trump announced he would retain ownership of his businesses, but turn over operations to his oldest sons.